Started. Is it visible? Okay. So now we are on the last session of this series, as I had told, and I think few days before, Prabhuji had also put a message on the group that in June we'll be having a test of all these 8 sessions that we've conducted. So I request that if the I'll announce the date for the examination that will be in the June, but it will be very difficult for you to watch all the videos on a single day together. So I request that every day, even if you can take out 15 to 20 minutes to revise one session, then slowly and slowly till June, you'll be able to revise all of them quickly, and you'll be able to keep on the track and prepare easily for the exam. I just want to take the exam because Maharaj always tells that unless there is any test, the students will not study properly. For example, if we don't have our 12th boards or if we don't have the examination, we'll not study. So, similarly, if we want to seriously study the spiritual texts, then also have to have a test and an examination so that all of us can study properly. So, today we are on the last session. We'll also have a recap session so that all the major points we can cover in the next session. So, in this session, we'll be discussing about what is true unity in diversity. So, there must be one question that at least came in my mind when I joined Krishna consciousness, when I started Krishna consciousness, was that we understood that there is one God, right? There is one God, Krishna. Then why can't be there only one religion? Why can't be there only one scripture, one mantra? Why are there so many scriptures, so many mantras, so many religions? Yes, we all have understood that if there is one supreme controller who is creating everything, annihilating everything, maintaining everyone, who is everyone's well wisher, then why cannot everyone just worship him? Then why do we need so many religions which have so many diversities? So, this is one question and a very important question that we will be covering and understanding in today's session. So, let us get started. So, if God is one, then why are there so many religions? So, first of all, we'll try to understand why many religions. This is the first point that we'll be covering. Second is we'll be understanding God, and then we'll be connecting ourselves to Srila Prabhupada, who is actually the ambassador of the spiritual world. Okay. So, the first thing that we're starting off with today is why so many religions? Okay. So, first of all, you see, even if there are many religions, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and Sanatan Dharma, Krishna consciousness, there is many similarities and many principles that are same amongst every religion. See, once some devotee was telling that once at the airport he went to the prayer room, and in the prayer room there were some Christians who were chanting on their beads, some Mohammedans who were chanting on their beads, and then we were also chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So, what is the difference? Everyone was chanting on their beads, and when everyone was done with their chanting, they bowed down. They bowed down to God. So, this shows that everyone was chanting some mantra, and everyone had accepted someone supreme who creates this world, who annihilates this world, who maintains everyone like a father. So that means they were submissive to God. They were accepting the laws of God, right? So this is similar in all religion, that they're submissive to a higher authority which controls and regulates the whole world. And therefore, first principle, you can note this down, the first principle of every religion that is same is that they talk about approaching a spiritual master. See, one cannot learn the truth of God on their own. One cannot be independent and try to learn the truth of God. One has to be submissive. What is the meaning of disciple? You know, The meaning of disciple is one who is disciplined. One who is disciplined is one who is a disciple. And one has to be disciplined under the instructions of a spiritual master. One cannot be independent. And when one accepts a spiritual master and accepts to be disciplined and sincerely practice Krishna consciousness, then this is actually the first principle of every religion that they talk about. And the spiritual master is one who himself has sincerely practiced for many years, who has given up the sense gratification, who is the seer of the truth, and therefore we submissively inquire from them about the truth. Yes, because they are the seer of the truth, so we inquire from them about the truth, absolute truth, right? The second thing, the second principle that every religion talk about and which is common is that God is one, and they talk about love of God. We're also talking about it from so many sessions, right? What is the dharma of the soul? Can anyone tell what is the dharma of the soul?
To serve the God.
To serve and to
To love.
Love God.
yes. So we all have to just remember this on our tips. What is the dharma of the soul? To serve and to love. To serve and to love. Right? So every religion talks about this. That God is one and the dharma is to serve and to love. Because actually God is very generous and very selfless. So there is one story which comes in Ramayana. So when I don't know how many of you know, but when Sita Devi was kidnapped by Ravana, then there was a project of construction of bridge that was going on. So they were all putting the stones in the, because see, if you come to the tip of India, then there is then there is ocean in between, and then there is Sri Lanka. So if you want to go to Sri Lanka, they built a bridge. They constructed a bridge with stones. So in the project of that construction of bridge, there were big, powerful monkeys who were lifting up big, strong stones, to throw in the ocean and build a bridge. But there was one very tiny squirrel who was picking up some sand and putting it in the ocean, and then again lifting some sand and putting it in the ocean. So one of the monkeys came and just pushed that squirrel away and said that, what will you do? You're just putting this sand in the ocean. We cannot construct a bridge out of 10 particles of sand being put in the ocean. But then when Lord Ram came and he said that, I don't want the service of all of you monkeys. I only want the service of that squirrel. Why? Because the squirrel had that much capacity to which she was serving. But the monkeys could have more capacity, but they were serving 10% of their capacity, but the squirrel was serving 100%. And because she was serving Lord Ram in the construction of the bridge, that was transcendental and glorious. So we have to serve. Maybe we can serve, maybe that service that we are doing may seem very insignificant. But if we are doing it our 100%, then that is glorious. Lord Ram, Lord Krishna, they do not want that we do big projects for their service. But even if we do small services, but if we do it with love and devotion for them, then that is also worthy for them. That is what Lord wants. Lord wants that we serve him with love and devotion. Right? So in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that God is so compassionate that even if we do small mistakes, He oversees them, those mistakes. And it is said that God has the love of 1 million mothers. We're only experiencing currently the love of one mother. Now you multiply that into 1 million, and even more than that is actually the love of God, love of Krishna, which He actually gives us. So this is the principle of every religion. Then third is, and we're also discussing this also from many sessions, that we have to obey God's laws, right? Just like a truthful citizen has to obey the state laws, otherwise what will happen? He will get the punishment. Similarly, if we do not obey God's laws, we will get the punishment. So for our good, so that we can live a happy life, we have to obey God's laws. And this is declared in every religion actually, right? And every religion actually talks about returning to God's kingdom. In Quran and in Bible, it is written, where water is nectar and where there is no need of light, where life is joyful without death and old age. We have to go there. So in Bible and Quran, it is written where water is nectar, where there is no need of light. So Krishna also says that in my eternal abode, I also told this in one session, that in the spiritual world, there is no sun and there is no moon. Then can you guess how is it so effulgent? What is the source of light there? How is it effulgent? If there is no need of light, no need of any sun and moon, then how is the spiritual world effulgent? Yes, we talked about it. So is it dark? Is there darkness? No. Okay. Arpan, you want to try?
Could you say the question again?
Yes.
Could you say the question again?
I was saying that, see, in this world, if we don't have sun, if we don't have moon, then there will be darkness, right?
Yeah.
But in the spiritual world, every religion says that there is no need of light. There is no light. So how is it
Because
still?
of God,
Yeah.
because of
God,
Krishna,
but
Yes,
Krishna, because of Krishna.
yes. So if Krishna is there, so why is it
Yes.
effulgent?
He-
It is effulgent because Krishna, because actually there is Brahma Jyoti, and that is the effulgence of Krishna. Krishna is so effulgent that the light emanating out of him is powerful enough to ignite and lighten the whole spiritual world. And that light which is emanating out of his transcendental body is called Brahma Jyoti. Jyoti means light. Brahma means God. So the light that is emanating from God is called Brahma Jyoti, and that is what ignites the whole spiritual world. Okay, Sahir. So that is what all religions say. Okay. So now, even in Bhagavad Gita, actually, I had taken out 2 verses that I wanted to discuss with all of you from Bhagavad Gita. Tell me if you can see the screen. 1 minute. Yeah, so 15.1 and 15.6 from Bhagavad Gita. So 15.1 says, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Urdhva Mula Madha Shakham Ashwatham Praharavyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Vedasa Vedavid. Sahir, can you read the translation?
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Veda.
Yes. So do you remember that we discussed this? That even if Krishna has all the 6 opulences, but why is it in this material world? Because it is a perverted reflection of this world. We had learned that there is a opposite shadow which falls in this world. So if there is love in the spiritual world, then there is a perverted reflection, lust in this material world, right? If Krishna is full of 6 opulences, right? Therefore, in this material world, we're attracted to the 6 opulences. We're attracted to someone beautiful. We're attracted to someone strong. Why? Because actually, in full quantity and eternally, Krishna has those 6 opulences. So therefore, this material world is like one tree that has the roots upwards and the branches down. Ulta tree. A tree that is opposite. Right? That tree. So this is the description of the spiritual world. Then again, Na tad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavaka yad gatva na nivartante tathama paramam mama. Shreya, are you there? Can you read this translation?
Yeah, I can read it. That supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world.
See, Krishna himself says that supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Then by what? By Krishna. Krishna is so effulgent, and that Brahmajyoti ignites everything. See, this is the verdict of Lord. I'll again share the PPT. So this is why every religion says that we have to return to the God's kingdom. Then they say, sin no more. What is sin? Sin means to disobey God. And there are 4 sins that we discussed. Now, Arpan, can you tell one of it?
Drinking.
Yeah,
Drinking.
drinking. That means intoxication. Drinking, smoking. Both of them come under intoxication. Second one, Mahir?
Gambling.
Yes. So intoxication, gambling, and then Sahir?
Illicit sex.
Yes. And the last one, Shrey?
Meat eating?
Yes. Thank God. All of you remember these 4 regulations, these 4 sins. So every... Yes? Okay. So every religion tells us that we don't have to commit the sin. Actually, Krishna is very kind still. He allows that one can, marry one's wife, but other than that, one has to treat everyone as the mother. Yes, matravat paridaryeshu. One has to treat everyone as one's mother. But one is not allowed to catch another's wife. Yes, similarly, one can own land, but one is not allowed to plunder another man's, wealth and riches. So we don't have to commit sin. Then every religion talks about the glory of the holy name, right? They talk that we have to chant the holy names, and those holy names can purify one's heart. Yes, we have anger, lust, greed, illusion, attachment. All of them can be, purified. And we can, have love, respect, service attitude, gratitude, and, humility, tolerance. All of these qualities just by chanting the holy names of God. So it purifies our heart. It purifies our mind. And all the religion talk about chanting the holy name of the God every day. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nastaiva, nastaiva, nastaiva gatiranyatha. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam. Only the names of God, only the names of God, only the names of God. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam. Kalau nastaiva, nastaiva, nast. There is nothing else, there is nothing else, there is nothing else. And you have to chant it every day, every day, every day. This is the verdict of all scriptures, all scriptures, all scriptures. Yes. And the last thing is sacrifice and renunciation of material pleasure. So we have many things which give us momentary pleasure. Let me drink. Let me smoke. Let me have illicit sex. Let me eat meat. It will give me instant pleasure, momentary pleasure. But it will be all temporary. Right? It will be all momentary. It will be all temporary. But we have to do no sin, but rather obey Lord's God. We have to rather obey God's laws. What are they? We have to wake up early. We have to chant. We have to read the scriptures. We have to hear the lectures. We have to treat everyone as God's children. An ant also. Even if there is a mosquito, we don't have to just clap our hands and kill that mosquito, right? It also has a soul, and that soul also belongs to God. How can we kill it? Yes, everyone has to treat another woman as one's mother. We have to act so that accordance with the God's orders, so that we can please him, right? So this is all that all religions tell us to do. So when you dive deep into all religions, then you can find all of these similarities in every one of them. Every one of them. You can find all of these similarities. I will be asking all of these 6 points. If you want to note it down, you can note it down. But all of the religions, if we dive deep, then they talk about this similarity. Okay. So now I'll be asking one question. You can tell whoever knows. What is secularism?
Can you repeat the question? I couldn't hear you.
I said, what do you understand by the term secularism? See, I'll be asking you, Mahir, because you've passed your 12th now. You must be knowing this term. Sahir is very young. I don't know if this word has come up in the school or not. So see, secularism.
Separate.
Yes, Arpan.
You separate from religion.
Yes.
You
So
separate from religion. The
yes.
process of it.
Yes. So actually, secularism, some people think that we are secular, that means we are neutral to all religions. That means we'll not be practicing any religion. In the garb of being secular, people become atheists. They say, I am secular. I am secular. I respect all religions, but they don't practice anything. They don't chant. They don't wake up early. They do all sorts of sins and they say, I am secular. Secularism does not mean that you disobey God's laws. In the garb of it, you become an atheist. No. What is secularism? Now, every one of us should know. Secularism means that everyone is a spirit soul belonging to God. Dharma of everyone is to love and to serve. Therefore, everyone should be given equal opportunity to chant the name of God and to worship God. And I will also do that. I will also chant the name of God. I will also worship God. Right? There is an army institute in Pune, in India. There is many rooms. Christians can go in their room and read their Bible. Mohammedans can go in their room and read the Quran. And the devotees can go in their room and chant the names of God. So actually, secularism means that everyone has the right to connect to God. Everyone has the right to purify their heart. Everyone has the right to chant the names of God, but according to their study of the scriptures, according to their understanding of the scriptures, everyone has the right to do this. Okay. So now we will understand, this is one major thing. I learned this 4 years back, but this is one thing that still is imbibed in my mind. The logic of mathematics. The simple logic of mathematics you have to, learn. See, if you ask an elementary child, what is 2 minus 5? I have a very young brother. He is in 2nd grade. If I ask him 2 minus 5, he will say, how can you subtract a bigger number from a smaller number? This is not possible. Right? He will say, this is not possible. But if I ask a high school child, what is 2 minus 5? He will say, minus 3. Right? But if I ask a graduate person, see, I am not graduate, so I also don't know this formula of mathematics. But if you ask a graduate person, he can solve more complex terms of mathematics. Correct? Understood? This thing, this logic we've understood. If I ask an elementary child, he will not know 2 minus 5. If I ask a high school child, he will have that understanding. And if I ask a graduate person, then he will be able to solve more complicated terms and more complex, equations of mathematics, right? Now, similarly, see, Islam says all animals except pig and dog can be eaten after sacrifice. So now what they do is, they say cow can be eaten. So they take a cow, for example, they buy a cow, for example, I'm just giving a vague example, they buy a cow for 80,000 rupees. They have to take it to the mosque. They cut one nerve of the cow so that they bleed profusely, but they don't feel the pain, and then they die. Then they cut it in 8 pieces, clean it properly, and give the 7 in charity. And are only allowed to eat that one piece. So, how many of the people will buy cow of 80,000, give 7 pieces in charity, means give 70,000 in charity, and only have 10,000 with themselves? So that means that even Quran is restricting on eating meat, right? Quran is also restricting on eating meat, but because they are addressing some people who cannot digest the absolute truth, they have to go gradually. See, you do not start, you do not start telling a first grade child 2 minus 5 is minus 3. You say 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8. You'd say this to a first grade child. You will not say 2 minus 5 is minus 3. You will not say 10 minus 20 is minus 10. You will not describe all of these formulas. Why? What is the reason behind it? Because they are not able to digest such complicated terminations, such complicated terms and concepts. So you have to go gradually. Similarly, Islam is the first step. You go gradually up the ladder. You have to ultimately go up the ladder. You know, you will not just in your life, you will say 1 plus 1 is 2. I have done PhD in mathematics, done, completed the course. No, you have to go up. You have to ultimately come to the formula. Yes, a square plus b. You have to ultimately come to the formulas, right? So similarly, Islam may say this. This is for the people who cannot digest the ultimate knowledge. Those people who cannot restrict meat eating, keep it. You know, ekdam, all of a sudden they cannot leave it. So they go gradually. So then Christianity says Roman Catholics take meat every day except Friday. But actually, yes, actually it was that the Christians can take meat only on Friday and not on other days, but according to their convenience, no, this is more convenient. They can have meat 6 days a week except for one day, but it was actually one day except the 6 days. Anyways, what can you see common in both of them? What is the one thing that is common in both of them?
That one.
Restricting meat eating means not
Yes.
totally, but by some.
Yes, exactly. They're restricting eating meat. And now, okay, Arpan, read. Okay, you can read this one. Arpan.
Meat eating is a pillar of sinful life, and true spiritual life cannot begin until we show mercy toward all God's creatures. Sanatana Dharma.
So what does Sanatana Dharma says? Krishna consciousness says. We directly say, meat eating. If you're meat eating, you cannot start the ABCD of spiritual life. In the first session, what did we discuss? No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex, right? So this is the starting, the ABCD of Krishna consciousness. So therefore, this is the graduate study, the complete study, the in-depth study, the absolute study. Krishna consciousness, the ultimate perfection. Ultimately, everyone has to come to this understanding only. But they are taking the gradual steps to reach this understanding. But we are going to the PhD directly. No meat eating. It is a pillar of sinful life. You cannot begin your spirituality unless and until you show respect and, mercy towards all God's creatures. Everyone is a soul. You're not this body. Everyone is a part of God. How can you kill others? Right? So, how old is Sanatana Dharma? See, Islam is 1300 years old. Christianity is 2000 years old. Buddhism is 2500 years old. Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna 5000 years ago. But see, Sanatana Dharma, It is from the dawn of creation. You cannot say it is 5,000, 10,000, 1 million, 1 crore. No. It is from the dawn of creation. And even, Krishna, he says in the Bhagavad Gita, I will just take out that verse. Give me 1 minute. When we directly read this shloka which Krishna has said now, it gives us more understanding. Let me just find that verse. Give me 1 minute. Yes. It is. Yes. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. I'm reading the shloka first. Shri Bhagavan. So wherever we were saying Shri Bhagavan Vacha, do we understand? We've discussed it. All of these are the shlokas of Gita, and we discussed that in Gita nowhere it is said Krishna Vacha. Why? Because it declares that who is saying this? One who is the highest authority. There is no question beyond Krishna saying anything, because he is the supreme personality of Godhead and the highest authority. So what does our highest authority say? Shri Bhagavan Vacha imam vivashvate yogam proktavan ham avyayam vivashvan manave praha manor ikshvakave abravit. Devan, can you read the translation? It will be little difficult, some words, but you can try.
The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna said, I instructed the imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Visvan, and Visvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku.
Yes. See, what did Krishna say? Krishna said that hear it carefully. I instructed this imperishable science of yoga, imperishable. That it cannot, terminate. It cannot update. It cannot change. As I said, that there are many scientists who discover one theory, and then after some years, oh, sorry, it was wrong. We're introducing this new one. After some years, oh, sorry. There were some defects in that also. We're discovering some new one. And then after some years, oh, now this is final. Then they get an award for it. After some years, oh, sorry, now this is final, right? This just goes on and on and on. But what does Krishna says? I instructed this absolute, this eternal, this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god. How old is the sun god? Can you measure? Now, the name of the sun god here is told to be Vivashvan. Vivashvan is the sun god. Now, Krishna says, I instructed this Bhagavad Gita knowledge to the sun god. Now, you can say, what? Krishna instructed this Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna 5,000 years back. Yes, 5,000 years back, when Krishna instructed this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, he said that I instructed it first to the sun god. And Vivashvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. When the creation started, the world started, the creation started, Manu, the father of mankind, was given this knowledge. And then Manu, in turn, instructed it to Ikshvaku in the lineage. Now, can you estimate how old is this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita? Krishna instructed it to Brahma, the first created being. Yes, it is not 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old, 5,000 years old, 10,000 years old. It is from the dawn of creation. Now you understood what it means by the dawn of creation, this term. Yes. So there is only 1 minute left. I'll be sharing another link, because on our usual link, there is another meeting going on. So I'll be sharing another link, so you can join that after this ends. Okay. So yes, I also discussed this in the previous sessions, if you recall. Sanatan. This is a Sanskrit word. This means eternal. And dharma. So Sanatan dharma means our eternal dharma. Eternal dharma. And what is that? To love and to serve. To serve and to love. Okay. Now, So from the book Jaiva Dharma, there is one scripture, there is one book by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, our Acharya. He writes, see, if we compare Islam and Sanatan Dharma, then it is very similar. Okay. The individual soul, the jiva, we call it jiva. So these words may be very new for you. They're Sanskrit words, but the people who know Hindi, they can easily grasp them, but it may be new for you. But in Sanatan Dharma, individual soul is called jiva, and in Islam, it is called ruha. We call the spiritual chit. Do you remember Sat Chidanand? So we call it chit. They call it mujarrad. Mujarrad, yes. We call the material achit. They call it jism. Similarly, there are many things. We call terms. There are so many terms that are similar. There are so many terms. You can read all of this. We call God Ishvara. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So we call God as Ishvara, Krishna, but they call it Khuda. Same, just the terms are different. There are so many similarities, so many similarities. If we actually dive deep, there are so many similarities. See, we call that we know that the soul is the eternal servant of the God. Jivera Swarupahaya Krishnera Nityadas. That soul is the eternal servant of God. And they also call that Ruh remains an eternal servitor of God Khuda. Right? Similarly, there is see, this is one conversation. We'll skip this. The same conversation actually between a Qazi and he is talking that you call it G, we call it Ru, you call this, we call that, and there are so many similarities. So, see, this is what other religions say. Islam, Quran says, every soul will have the taste of death. The life of this world is but comfort of illusion. See, similarity. What we are learning also in our sessions. See, what do they say? But those who keep their duty to their Lord, for them are gardens underneath which rivers flow, wherein they will be safe forever. What are they discussing about? The spiritual abode, wherein they will be safe forever, gardens underneath which river flows, if they keep their duty to the Lord. See, if we abide by the laws of God, if we keep our duty to the Lord, we will attain the spiritual kingdom. So this is also, see, there are so many similarities. This is also what they're also talking about this only. That if we keep our duty to the Lord, for them are gardens underneath which rivers flow. They will attain that place which will be safe forever. So it's the spiritual world only. So much similarity is there. See, if we now compare the Sanatan Dharma and the Christianity, see, Krishna saying, Abhi humne padha hai. Just now we've read this. That abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by electricity. One who reaches it never returns to this material world. There the sun does not shine. Okay, wait. Devin, can you read this?
There the sun does not shine, neither do the moon and the stars, nor do these flashes of lightning shine. What to speak of fire? He, Lord shining, all these shine. Through his luster, all these are variously illuminated.
Yes. So, did you understand what I'm talking about? Is this only? There is no need of anything. Lord is shining. All shine. Through his luster, everything shines. See. Okay, who will read? Sahil? This one.
And there shall be no night there, and they need no candle, neither light of the sun. For the Lord God giveth them light, and they shall reign forever and ever.
See the similarity here. See one more thing. Oh, who will read this? Mahir?
I shall now declare into you in full this knowledge, both phenomena, material, as what is this? Nominal, spiritual, by knowing which there shall remain nothing future to be known.
Yes. So, see, what does Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita is that I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge. both the material and the spiritual. Krishna says that I will declare to you this full knowledge. See, this is very important. Krishna says that I will tell you something which is full, complete. You do not have to know anything beyond this. You do not know. You do not have to know anything beyond this. What I am telling you is full. By knowing which, there shall remain nothing further to be known. Nothing. You don't have to know everything, anything beyond Bhagavad Gita. It is the PhD that you all need to know in spirituality. There is nothing that is need to be known by. Krishna says himself, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the highest authority says about himself, about the absolute knowledge. What is there to be known further? But see, what is it said here? Arpan, can you read? What is it said here? Anyone can read.
Okay. There's much that I have to tell you, but you cannot bear it now.
Yes. So what does Jesus say? That there is much that I have to tell you, but you cannot bear it now. So what had he told was partial knowledge, right? It was a partial knowledge. But what Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Bhagavan Vacha himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead says, is the absolute knowledge, right? There are different religions, but the same message. See the depth of Vedic knowledge. Depth of verifiable and inconceivable information in the Vedas is far greater than any other scriptures. See, okay, this is, I don't know how much you'll be able to understand. This is very complicated thing. See, if we talk, if you just have to hear it attentively, then I'll be able to communicate it to you. See, if you actually get to the depth of, I'm currently reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and the depth of Srimad Bhagavatam, I cannot explain it to you. The depth of the information is so deep, you cannot conceive it. It is inconceivably deep information that Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita gives you. See, other scriptures tell you, God said there will be, let there be light, and there was light. God said, let there be earth, and there was earth. What does this Srimad Bhagavatam say? See, from sound, I'll just say, even if you don't understand it, is okay. This is thoda difficult to understand, but I'm just telling you the depth of the knowledge. It says, from sound came air, from air came fire, from fire comes water, and from water comes earth. So the sound is the subtlest, then air, fire, water, earth. So now the earth is the most gross. Now, if you see the earth, if you see the cosmos, if you go one level higher, there will be one element that is eliminated. And you go subtler. From gross, you go subtler. And one element keeps on eliminating. Then there is detail about Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandha. The feeling, the touching, the seeing, the smelling, the tasting. All of these elements are discussed. And then the interaction of the 24 element, how they are derived, about Prakriti, Mahat Tattva, Pradhan, the creation. There is this thick book only about creation, describing the creation of the material world, how it is created, how elements interact, how everything is created. So it is in such depth and detail. So it is not just God said, let there be earth, and there was earth. No. In such detail, everything is given in the Vedas, in Srimad Bhagavatam. See, Srimad Bhagavatam, on the other hand, gives step-by-step information of how the creation of the universe as well as all living entities take place. The Sankhya philosophy of 24 elements of the universe given in the Vedic scriptures is scientifically explainable and provable. We will also understand this, but in the later stages. We'll not understand it right now, but I'm just telling you not to understand this, but I'm just telling you how deep is the Vedic knowledge, just to make you understand that how deep is the Vedic knowledge, right? So many religions say God is great. You must have also heard it. God is great. But will they tell you why he is great? How he is great? What makes him great? God is love. Why he is loving? How he is loving? What makes him loving? God is almighty. But what makes him almighty? How is he almighty? Why is he almighty? Yes. But when we talk about Krishna consciousness, then we talk about God is great. Why? Because from every pore, there are pores in your body, hair pores, openings. From every pore of Krishna, Vishnu, innumerable universes emanate. From our pore, only sweat can emanate. But from Krishna's one pore, innumerable universes can emanate. Innumerable universes can emanate. When Krishna opened his mouth in front of Yashoda Maya, he showed the whole universe in his mouth. Whole universe in his mouth. He showed the Vishwaroop to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He showed the Vishwaroop. Yes. So therefore, Lord is great. We can justify why Lord is great. We are not only saying Krishna. We are talking about Krishna. Who is Krishna? How does he look? The qualities of Krishna, where he lives, his address, his contact number, his qualities, his appearance, everything. Such detail. God is loving. How is he loving? Now, there is one story that comes. I don't know how many of you know. When Krishna was in Dwarka, as Dwarkadhish, Sudama was one of his friends who came to meet Krishna there. So, Sudama was a beggar, Brahman, but a Brahman and a beggar. Krishna washed his feet with his tears. Krishna washed his feet with his tears. And he came to ask some morsels of rice, and Krishna gave him everything that he needed. Palaces, gold, everything. And he became fully satisfied just by seeing Krishna. He did not want anything else after that. Krishna is loving. We can justify why he's loving with innumerable pastimes. I've just told you one page or one paragraph of the one out of the whole book. There are on every page we can justify how Krishna is loving. God is almighty. How is he almighty? We can tell how is he almighty. When Draupadi, I discussed when Draupadi was being disrobed in midst of the whole palace, Draupadi was being disrobed, but Krishna provided her innumerable amount of cloth. Yes, innumerable amount of cloth Krishna provided. So Krishna is almighty. We can show how he is the protector of his devotees. He is almighty. Krishna says, one thing in Bhagavad Gita, Sutre Mani Ganaiva. He says that just like beads are resting, pearls are resting on a thread to make a bracelet, everything is resting upon me. Although you cannot see the thread underneath the bracelet, but everything, all the pearls and beads are resting on it. Similarly, all the cosmos, the planets, everyone is resting upon that thread, which is Krishna. Although we cannot see it, but he is the maintainer and he is the ultimate cause behind everything, right? So see, we have one pocket dictionary. I don't know how many of you have it. Hare Krishna, am I audible properly?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yes, Shrey, you can try. Okay. So, just like we have one pocket dictionary, right? So, all the other scriptures are like the pocket dictionaries. But then we have one Chambers dictionary, right? Every definition in detail we have in that. Similarly, the Vedas, the Sanatana Dharma, and the Krishna consciousness. It is such in-depth study, like it is a Chambers dictionary. Every definition, everything is in so much detail, perfection, and in the absoluteness that we don't need to know anything beyond it. And who says this? Sahir, who says this? That we do not have to know anything beyond this? Knowing this?
The scriptures.
Yes, and the scriptures, who says this? I caught you.
Krishna.
Yes, Krishna. So in the scriptures, Krishna says, Sri Bhagavan Vacha. What does he say? He says that there is nothing beyond to be known after this knowledge. Okay. So I think there is only 5 minutes more if we can complete this, Otherwise, I'll do it in the next class only. Otherwise, it'll be too much. I just want that every one of you can explain what you learned in this last 5 minutes. Everyone actually should tell me 2 points so that I can catch back your attention from wherever you're distracted from. Okay.
I can go first. So we talked about principles. So approach God. God is one, and love God. Obey God's laws. Return to God's kingdom, and sin no more. And glory of holy names. The principles that we learned about.
Yes. Perfect.
I learned. Oh, sorry. Okay, I learned about like how other religions are very impartial when it comes to like their view of God and what God serves to do. But like I guess Sanatana Dharma is more uniform and gives a stronger basis for why God does what he does, God's pastime, and why we should follow God. So I think that like full picture like is very helpful.
Yes.
Principles of every religion, that there is one God, but every religion have their different perspective, or we can tell rules. Like you give example of the meat eating, that in Muslims the pig and the 10 out of they have to give 7 or something to charity, and in Christian they can eat meat every Friday, and they can, in Sanatana term, tell that you will get means little happiness by doing these things. You will not get happiness around the world. So that I learned.
Principles of every religion are the same. The dharma of the soul is to serve and love, obey God's law, return to God's kingdom, and then don't sin. And then the glory of the holy names and sacrifice of material pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. Sahib?
I learned the 4 principles, which are to approach a spiritual master, serve God, love God, obey God's laws, return to God's kingdom, don't sin, glorify God's name, and sacrifice material pleasure because it's temporary. I learned that secularism means to separate from religions, and people that are secularism believe that they're in all religions when they're not following one.
Yes, absolutely. So we all have to remember these learnings so that I'll be taking a quiz also in the next class. Um, till where we've done, I'll be taking the quiz. First, I'll be explaining. There's only a small portion that is left for us to discuss, but I'll be explaining in the next class. And after that, I'll be taking the quiz of the whole session. Okay.